All right, this is a recording of chapter 26, a grim lesson, Ecce Romani. Euclides et pueri iam domum redi erant. Again, redi is from the verb eo ire, and here you can see the perfect stem, R-E-D-I. I is actually the perfect stem. It just has a prefix red on the front, meaning back. Erant, the pluperfect ending, had gone back. So Euclides and the boys already, Yam, had gone back home. Post Canam, after dinner, Cornelius et Marcus et Sextus, and Anaphora, individualizing each of them, were sitting sedibant in the atrium. The atrium is the main part of the Roman house when you first walk in. Quid hodie vidistis? Query. So what did y'all see, boys? Cornelius said. The answer then, Marcus respondit with an I-T-E is the it is going to indicate that it is a perfect ending, and thus Marcus responded. Nothing, nihil, except old buildings. The verb that is missing would be vidimus. We saw nothing except old buildings. Nos in urum exire volumus soli. We, and I know it's we for nos because it's the mus on the volumus. We want to go out, exire, into the city, we solely, alone, a nominative, plural, modifying the subject, and then he whines, Cur non licet, as children often do. Why is it not allowed? Cui Cornelius. Cui here is what's called a linking qui, and it is just merely to whom, or you could imply a to him. Cornelius then said, Est periculosum, it is dangerous to go out into the streets in vias of the city, huius urbis. Huius is from hic, haec, hoc. It is genitive modifying urbis, and it is what we call a demonstrative pronoun or adjective. So, est periculosum, it is dangerous to go out into the streets of this city, huius urbis, sine custode, without a guard. The subject of this sentence is actually the infinitive exire. The act of going out is a dangerous thing. And since periculosum ends with the neuter it tells you that infinitives, when they act as nouns, are neuter nouns. Sunt multi homines celesti. There are many wicked men who aripio, aripere, they grab, they snatch the bona, the goods of citizens. Civium is genitive plural. Many people try to make it to say good citizens, but no. Bona is the substantized accusative plural neuter from the adjective bonusa, meaning good, so it's the goods, the good things, civium of citizens. Nunnum quam, literally not never, but the idiom is going to be sometimes, but not never. These men, he homines, he again is from hic haec hoc, they kill, necant, the citizens themselves, ipsos being from ipse ipsa ipsum. Vobis igitur non licet. Therefore, non licet, it is not allowed, vobis, for y'all, dative case of reference, to go out without a guard. Again, the subject of the impersonal verb licet is the act of going out. The act of going out is not allowed. Jam sero est. Now it is late. Nunc necesse est. Now it is necessary, vobis, dative of reference, for y'all, cubitum ire, an idiom that means to go to bed. Nolite cassare. Do not be idle, but ite, go immediately. Ite again is coming from the irregular verb eo ire. The boys, pueri, tired, defesi, from or because of, the labore, ablative of cause, the labor, diei, of the day, fifth declension genitive, simulac, as soon as erunt, they went, cubitum, to bed, abdormiverunt, they fell asleep. Postridie, on the following day, mane, early in the morning, Marcus was lying. Now this verb, yakebat, is not the verb to throw. If it were the verb to throw, it'd be yak-iebat, but instead it is the verb to lie, a second conjugation, yakeo yakere. So Marcus was lying in lecto suo, in his own bed. Now please note that suo, it could be his own, her own, its own, or their own. You will know which translation, not because of its form, but rather because of what it is referring to. And since our subject is Marcus, it would then be his own. Et de circo maximo ita cogitabat, and he was thinking ita in such a way about the Circus Maximus de Circo Maximo, which is the great chariot racing stadium. Quando Circum Maximum visitabimus? When, quando, will we visit the Circus Maximus? Cur pater meus nos exire vetat? Why does my father forbid? Veto vetare, like a veto. It means to forbid. Why does he forbid nos, us, to go out? Heri nullos homines celestos in urbe vidi. Yesterday, vidi, I saw, did see, has, or have seen, nullos homines celestos, no wicked men in the city. Inter diu certe, certainly, during the day. the Pridones. Those are robbers. Prido, which is the nominative, it has a long O, but that is not an ending. That is the variant. Robbers will not harm nobis us. Nokeo nocere, which is the verb in the sentence, is a verb that is a special verb that takes dative objects, because when you harm something, you are giving harm to it. That's why nobis is the dative object of that special verb. Meam patrum, quod est nata Romanus, Pridones timent. We cannot start with meam patrum, that is accusative direct object. Instead, you go to the Pridones. So robbers fear my father, patrum meum, quod, because he is a Roman senator. Nihil periculi est, there is nothing of danger. Brevi tempore, in a short time, ut Marco videbatur. Now look at videbatur particularly. It is the verb video videre, which means to see. But when it is passive, it can not only mean to be seen, but rather to seem, which is why it's then translated, brevi tempore, in a short time, as it seemed to Marcus, or as it was seeming to Marcus, the pueri, the boys, were going ibant to the circus. Mox, molem gentem, circi maximi Marcus conspexit. Soon Marcus spotted the molem gentem, the huge mass of the Circus Maximus. Ecce clamavit Marcus. Look, Marcus shouted. Est circus, it is the circus. They're also excited to see it. Cum intraverimus. Whenever you see the cum, you look for an ablative. If there is not one there, it is going to mean when, and that's what we have here. So when we, and it is a future perfect, will have entered, at last tandem aurigos ipso spectabimus, we will watch the charioteers themselves. Charioteers, aurigos, is another first declension masculine word, which is why it's modified by the masculine ipsos, even though aurigos looks feminine. Subito tamen, suddenly, however, the tres homines, three men, praecipita verunt, hurled, say, himself, herself, itself, or themselves. Because we have the subject as the three men, tres homines, we know it's themselves. They hurled themselves into the street. Cave illos homines. Cave, like cave canem in ancient Pompeii, beware of the dog. This, however, says, beware of those men, illos, those, from illa illa lud, meaning that. In the plural, it is those. Sextus shouted, illi, those. Masculine things, we call them those guys, those ones, those dudes. Certe, certainly. Trahent, I ask the question because I see the E. Traho, trahere, third conjugation. So therefore it is future, will drag nos, us, into the neighboring homes. Domus is one of two fourth declension words that are feminine. Manus, hand, is the other, which is why it's modified by the feminine wikinas. Into the neighboring houses at Ibi, and there nekabunt, they will kill nos, us. Said frustra, but in vain. For Marcus, and then comotus, a perfect passive participle, the fourth principal part of the verb comoio, comoere, having been moved, metu, by fear. After he heard, he did hear, the sextum clamantem. Clamantem with an NT and then a third declension ending, and if it were a nominative, it would just end in NS, like many people's names, clamanes, walanes, is what we call a present active participle. We saw this first in chapter 7 with laborantes, the working slaves. Here it is, the shouting sextus. So after he heard sextus shouting, ad terram, terra terrae, meaning earth, kikidit, from kado, cadere, kikidi. He fell to the ground. Do not say he fell to the earth, that would make him seem like a meteor. Et yakebat, and he was lying. Again, this is yakeo, yakere, to lie, not yakio, yakere, to throw. He was lying in luto, in the mud, he immobilis, motionless. Mobilis has an is fake ending in the nominative, modifying our understood subject, he of yakebat. Eho, clamavit unus e praedonimus, alas, or hello, or whatever you would like for eho. One, unus e praedonimus, out of the robbers shouted. Quo abis parvule, quo means whither, or to where. To where abis, are you going away? Parvule, little bitty. This is the word parvus, but it is a diminutive, so not just little, but I translate parvulus as little bitty. So where are you going away? Little bitty one. Quid est nomen tuum? What is your name? None tu filius es senatoris. Surely, none expects a yes answer. And so therefore you could say either surely or you could say tu filius es senatoris. You are the son of a senator. right? The opposite of none would be the word noom. But here we have an anaphora. He asks again with a none. Surely your name is Marcus Cornelius. Cui. Again, we see what is called that linking qui. To whom? We could also just say to him. It's in the dative case. To whom Marcus implied responded, Quid vultus Scelesti? What do y'all want, wicked dudes? I don't have the word dudes there, but Scelesti is a substantive, and so therefore it is implying the adjective a noun, and thus to become a noun it becomes what we know as a substantive. He then says, Nihil pecunia habeo, I have nothing of money. Pecunia, genitive part of a whole, and thus he has the nothing part of all the money. Nolite me weberare, nolite, plus an infinitive, do not beat me. Si mihi nocueritis, again this is your verb nocio nocere, that takes a dative object, mihi. So it is in the future perfect, if y'all will have harmed me, pater meus, my father, if I see ilongi puniet, will punish y'all certainly. Punio punire. Sed interpellawit prido, but the robber interrupted. Take puer, shut up, boy. Take from the verb takeo takere, dropping the re. Tu es captivus noster. You are our captive. Neque, meaning when it's only one, and not. If there are two neques, it's neither nor. And redibus, you will not, neque, go back to your father, ad patrem. Nemo nunc poterit, no one now poterit. Erit is the future of the verb sum esse, ero eriserit, with a prefix on the front. So no one will be, erit, pot, able, now, servare, to save you. Do not confuse servare, which means to save, servo, servare, a first conjugation, with the fourth conjugation, serio, servire. That means to serve or be a slave to. This one means to save, like pre-serve. Nevertheless, no one will be able to save you. I, nekabo, there's my subject, but it's modified by ipse. I, myself, will kill you, and ana means for, so for I myself. Tum praedo gladium stringsit, then the robber, which is in the nominative. It looks like it has an O ending, but it is not, and so therefore it is the one who is committing the action. Stringsit from stringo, stringere, stringsi, strictus. Then the robber drew his sword. He didn't get out like a crayon and drew a sword, but nevertheless he pulled it out. That's why it's called a drawstring on your pants. You draw it. Nevertheless, the gladium, of course, is a sword. Gladiators are sword bearers. Sextus stabat per territas. The terrified Sextus was standing, or we could say Sextus was standing terrified. Et clamavit, and he shouted, Fair auxilium, bring help! Fair auxilium, bring help! Fair, because he's talking to one person, bring. If it were multiple people, like we saw back in chapter 5, with the girls attacked by wolves, it would be ferte. Said nemo clamorum audivit, but no one heard audivit, the shouting, the shout. Nemo, anaphora repeating it, brought help. Tulit, brought, because it comes from pharaoh, fere, tuli, latus, the third principal part, perfect stem, perfect ending. Nobody brought help. Marcus oculos clausit, clausit from claudo, claudere, clausi, clausus. Marcus closed his eyes, et mortem expectabant, and was watching out, was awaiting, was expecting mortem, death. Nihil accidit. Accidit is a verb. Accidit, accidere, accidit. It has, again, an impersonal nature. It means it happens. But here the it is the nihil. Nothing happened. The word accidit could be either perfect or present in its form. Here, obviously, I would suggest perfect because all of the other actions were in the past as well. Aperuit, aperire. He opened oculos his eyes. In lecto erat suo. He was in his own bed. Suo again can mean his own, her own, its own, or their own, but it is a matter of translation dependent upon what it's referring to. Somnium modo fuerat. Modo without a long O means only. If it did have a long O at the end, it would be from the noun modus modi, meaning way or method, but here it is the adverb meaning only. And so therefore, fuerat, which is the perfect stem with the pluperfect ending, it had been only a dream. Hodie tamen. Today, however, he, Marcus, constituit. Constituo, constituere, constitui means to decide. Marcus decided, manere, to remain at home. Exire noluit. He did not want exire, to go out.